So I've been asked on the message boards many times, is solar practical in Iowa? And a lot of times you get haters or people who aren't aware of how the system works. And as someone who hasn't paid an electrical bill in about 4 years, I figured I would just go ahead and walk through my system here and go through some of the major components and talk a little bit what it's like to live fully off-grid. And when I use that term, I mean without any power utility lines. And eventually we'll also be off LP in our system that we're currently putting in, and fully off-grid here in Iowa with our winters and our lack of sun. Today is the 17th of December, and as you can see behind me on my solar array, yes, I do got two different type of panels. That's not the camera being silly. The sun's already on its way down. So during the winter in Iowa, we have roughly about what they call 2 hours of solar exposure at our minimum. And that's really important to know. The solar hours is because that's what you design your system around. And so that's what our system is designed around. And I'm going to go over our system a little bit and the racking, and kind of show you what we've done. At the time prior to inflation, our system was about 16K is what we spent on putting it in ourselves. A lot of people kind of scoff that it can't be done at that price. I would say we could even do it cheaper during the time we put it in if we knew what we knew at that now. But the trick is doing it yourself. And so for some people that may not work because of covenants or requirements. There's a lot you can still do yourself and have put in by an electrician in order to meet your requirements or your insurance as well. But these racks, these are uniracks. This is equipment you can buy at Menards. We got the galvanized versions. I don't know much about the green version of the unirack, but I do know the gold will rust. I haven't had rusting issues with the galvanized versions. So let's just take a look here real quick. And so you can see it's just the racking. Originally, let's get in here a little bit. The end caps people have questions about. Let's see if we can see that properly. Yeah, so there's the end caps. This is still pieces from Menards equipment that you can buy there. And then we use some aluminum channel lock. And then we have rubber spacers, because you will have galvanic reactions between the aluminum rubber, or the aluminum and the steel, which these brackets up here are steel. So that should prevent it. This system has been up for about 3 years now, and the top of these panels are about 12 foot tall. These are 72 cell panels. I don't know if I'd recommend them for that size, but it is what worked for us. We have about we have 6 major racks and 3 charger controllers. We also built our own boxes. As you can see here, there's our boxes that we put in. When I was drilling the holes for the top, I was unaware that they were fiberglass. You should have paid attention, and that was a pretty itchy situation. But let me open up these boxes. Let me just also make the caveat that I don't recommend that you do anything without your own homework. A lot of this stuff, people who are code fans, and rightly so, I can understand why, may be like dying. But this is the way we did it, and this is the honest picture of it. So let me get in there. You can see the positive side and the negative side. We do have individual fuses for the lines where they tie into. I would recommend using breakers, and they do make DC breakers. Midnight Solar seems to be the most popular place to get breakers from, but they're actually a rebadging of a different company, which are a lot cheaper. So we have 3 of these boxes, which ties 2 panels, 2 of the lock this back real quick, 2 of the pedestals together each, and then they run into the house into another block, which diverts them into the charger controllers, which eventually takes it into the Outback Radiant system, which is a mixture of DC to AC inverters, kind of like what you use in a car, and a built-in DC charger that actually charges the battery if you were to use a generator. I just kind of do a pan through over here. Our system is roughly 11.5K-ish. We used Canadian Solar, which is my favorite brand, which is funny because they're not made in Canada. They're a Chinese company. And also Sun Edison's. We have both mono and poly panels, cell-wise. And it used to be that mono was the best all the time, but some of the heating characteristics of poly have gotten pretty good. And so, as you can see in the mono cell here, these are polys, apologize. They're able to use every bit of the panel because they can pour them, versus the mono cell, which you can see these spots taking up space. So there's pluses and minuses with both panels. Personally, I wouldn't shy away from either one. I'd just look at what financially works for you, and then I would purchase it accordingly to see what's on the market. I also sell repurposed panels, and prior to inflation, I think the most powerful repurposed panel I sold at the time was like $295, and I think I sold those all day long for $95. And I wouldn't walk away from doing that. I'm gonna walk down here to the generator. When it comes to solar, ideally your system should be big enough that you should not ever really need to use the generator. As a matter of fact, every time you should turn it on, it should really be an indicator of your system being sized improperly for your location, even Iowa. Originally, I was kind of gun shy. We lived grid tied in Harrison County's first grid tied system. We were the one who put it in. And so originally I got a 12.5K Kohler generator. Made sure it was an Ecotech motor so I could walk in the Napa to get the parts, since it was a Ford motor. And as I'm getting ready to show you, it never left the shipping container because honestly, it just was never needed. And so therein lies the generator. And what will probably actually end up happening is I'll probably end up reselling it because I just don't need it. And the problem with LP, liquid propane generators, which that one is that they burn through a lot of fuel. There's a point where if you're willing to spend a few thousand, you can get almost any size used liquid propane generator you want. But then you start looking at how much propane you have to carry on site, and it really becomes self-defeating. So what we do run probably, I'd say maybe 6 times a year, based on certain situations, which I'm not going to cover in this video. We cover them in the class that we teach, is that we use what you're probably used to seeing in the big box stores, which is a dual fuel generator. And right now we've been too lazy to actually even hook it up to the LP because we use it so infrequently. But yeah, it really having to use a generator should not be the norm unless your system hasn't been sized properly. So right now we're going to go ahead and walk into the basement here of our home. And when I used to teach a class, I used to downplay lithium because the price just wasn't there yet. And I can tell you that, hold on here, and tell my wife not to yell at me right now. Hold on a second, let me turn the light on. Okay, yeah, here we go. Always doing construction. But here's the system. Here's the system behind me. And my wife is telling me that the pump's running right now for everything, so it's going to be playing in the background. I just speak up loud enough. Might be able to edit it out later, but anyway, so the lines from the panels come through this box. This is not code. I used to be a car audio competition guy, and we always displayed all our expensive accessories. So this is kind of ode to my background. We leave the covers off the components here because I also come from a nuclear background, which everything's so you can see it. So if something's breaking down or on fire, also it makes it very more useful for teaching classes to students if they can actually see the components. So if you were to look up Radian, Outback Radian, it's going to look different on Google than it does on what I have, because on all honesty, I just have all the covers off. But these are basically two of the DC to AC inverters. In there you also have a block that charges the battery if we were to run the generator, because at that point you're turning AC electricity off the generator to DC power on the battery. But in order to run it in the house For solar, you have to turn the DC power from the battery into AC into the home. Charger controllers here, the way I explain them in the class is if you ever had a battery charger for your car, these do the same thing, but they actually take the power off a solar panel and make it useful because, as you know, the sun is always changing. You know, you got anything from clouds to bird mess to whatever, and they're able to adjust all those parameters as the sun goes down and etc. to make a constant power output that the battery can use. In my case, I have 3. This system I originally paid to have pre-wired that came with 2, but in order to make the winter without having to use the generator, we needed a 3rd one for my design anyways. I'm not saying you have to do that. Currently, even with the sun going down, you can see we're using 0.6. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. I'm not quite sure if it'll show properly, but I'm using a 0.6 and making 0.6, and we're still losing a little bit. So it is, like I said, it is getting to be a little after 3 on, so the sun is on its way down. But my home typically idles. When I say idle, I mean like if you're sleeping at night and everything's turned off, it idles about 200 to 300 watts. That was a design we were able to do when we rebuilt the house. Most homes are considerably more than that. And then this little box down here with all the wires and spaghetti running through it is actually just a big junction box where everything just kind of ties in. You got your breakers, you got all your stuff, you got your battery indicators. And then on the side here you have a hub, which should look familiar, kind of like what you're used to seeing in a computer. I can't really see on the phone if it's showing it, but this basically makes it so all the charger controllers talk and everything talks to each other. And then we have lines that come off that control the bilge fan to suck out the hydrogen from the battery, because this is a wet cell. It's a 3,000 pound, roughly about, forklift battery. And then we have kind of like a battery rejuvenator, which I didn't give too much credit to that technology, but a lot of companies use the BLS brand battery lifesaver, and it's even some companies recommend it. So I know that it works because I have cleaned this battery with hands that have gotten relatively wet, and I started getting pulsating shocks through my hand, and I'm thinking, well, this is a DC battery, why am I getting pulsating shocks? Well, it's the battery lifesaver is doing pulsating shocks, and what its job actually is to do is to run a frequency of electricity kind of on an AC line through the battery that basically helps keep the electrolytes moving, and also breaks up the crystals that form on the plates, called sulfication. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but and so it extends. A lot of times there's multiple reasons why battery dies, but one of the reasons is because the electrolytes build up as like crystals on the plate, and as they build up on a crystal on a plate, it leaves less surface to be used, and then you lose capacity. So I know that it at least is sending AC through the battery, because I have been zapped during the cleaning process. Let me see what else we have here. This is the battery. You can see this is a sloped. Let's see if you can get it. You can see this is a sloped enclosure, because in wet cell batteries, one of the byproducts of the battery, when it's under use, is hydrogen, and it has a tendency to be an explosive gas. If you remember the Hindenburg or the Zeppelin, I think, it was hydrogen. And so even if the fan, which is located right here, and these leads go in, even if the fan was to turn off, you would still have that slope, and hydrogen's light enough where it will just go up and out. The fan is tightened. The nice thing on the Radian and a lot of the Outbacks, a lot of the companies in general, they give you excess relays for things to happen based on programming. And whenever there's a voltage applied to this battery from the charger controllers, the fan kicks on. So right now it is running. And right now the other fan noise I hear is just the inversion from the DC out of the battery to the AC out of the house. So as far as the battery is concerned, I'm not going to get too far into the different batteries technology. We kind of teach a little bit about that. I would not do wet cell at this time, because the technology has gotten good enough where it's on parity, and even in some cases cheaper to go with lithium. One thing we don't have is we don't have a central air, central heating. But with some of the new lithium, they are running higher voltages. This is a 48-volt system, which is considered one of the highest at the time for a traditional off-grid home. But with lithium, they're running voltages considerably higher, which allows them to do a lot of those central systems more effectively. We primarily heat our house with a Amish cook stove, which we're going to go up and take a look at, which will do coal, which I don't do coal. We don't have a chimney the size for it, but it's nice to know that if it gets overfired, and yeah, a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about, if you're a wood burner, sometimes you kick that bottom door open or something, and then all of a sudden life happens and you forget that the thing is running. You come back and it's a nice shade of orange or red, and you got to worry about the integrity of the metal. The system's designed to handle coal, so the temperatures we'd be firing at are going to be considerably lower, even if we don't pay attention. So we're going to go up and take a look at that. But back to the battery, wet cells are kind of a pain because they're kind of like babies. I work on forklifts, I have maintenance outside of here in Omaha, and you have to be able to water them. You have to be able to check the electrolytes. You got to kind of top them off, and just kind of take care of them in general. And that's not quite the case with most lithium. There might be some battery junkies out there, which I'm not that I have anything against that, I just haven't had the time to research it, that maybe saying yeah, no, yes or no. But from my experience, lithium is nice because, in short, when you size a battery for a home, and the way you're going to size that is, if I don't have sun, which some days we don't here in Iowa, will there be enough battery to do what I need to do for at least 1 or 2 days, called days of autonomy in the class. And you want to size so your battery doesn't drop below 50%, which means you have to double the size of your battery. Well, in lithium, you can run it all the way down in some situations. There's some chemistries of lithium. And so it allows you to have a battery that's historically smaller, lighter, and requires no maintenance. Of course, if the older technology in some lithium, there's fire concerns. I'm not going to pretend I know a whole heck of a lot about that, but I'll let you research that part of your own. So now we're going to go up and just take a look at the wood burning stove. There's another video I'm going to put out briefly. It has to do with, right now in the concrete of a floor, we have PEX tubing, which we will be heating the basement with. The basement's still in progress. We've only been in this house 2 years, 2.5, 3 years. And see that big, huge hot water holding tank? Well, eventually that's going to be connected to, let's get down here, make sure, to the PEX tubing system, which, if I can get him, that we put in. And that's going to be like a water thermal battery to heat up the floor. And we will have a resistive, the dog is going crazy upstairs. Anyways, but we'll have, so is homestead life. We will have a resistive bank that runs off a whole separate solar array system above the porch and above the classroom that runs that system, and also runs our commercial incubators, maybe a freeze dryer. So we will go into that system. But that system's I'm kind of excited about because I already have the charger controllers. I already have the lithium batteries. We have one array that we will put together left. We have one we've already done, which I'll see if I can edit into this video. And yeah, so I'm going to give a brief overview of the stove real quick. As far as cooling, we do have two window units that we run, but we do have a mini split that is designed directly for solar upstairs. We just haven't installed it yet. It was not originally sized into the design of this system, but it is for the one that we're installing on top of the roof. So the house, we're supposedly solar, you can't do anything. We got kids doing VR, we got ceiling fans on, we got refrigerators running, microwaves, air fryers, lights. Above me right here, you can see our whole house fan. We use that for cooling, ceiling fans for cooling. But this is our Hecco wood burning stove. It's nice. I'm going to do a full review on it, but just not currently. It's nice. But if I had to do a stove that didn't need to be cooktop needed, I'd probably go back to doing a soapstone. I've had those before. They're nice because there's enough thermal mass where you can load them and be done with them. And your load times can be 6, 7, 8 hours based upon the quality of your wood. Versus this thing requires a lot more feeding. But yeah, that's our primary form of heating. Let me go take you out to show you the mini split, which is not hooked up. The mini split has, on one side of it, has MC4 connectors, which hook directly into the panels, which is nice. You don't need any infrastructure to do that. And then on the other side, it has 220 hookups. So if you guys are familiar with the Mr. Cool or in the DIY wires or anything like that, but here's the mini split. And as you can see, here's the MC4 connectors. There's 220, and that's it. And then the way that works is that as the sun goes down, it puts the load on the battery, and then as the sun comes up, it works off the solar panels. So if you don't have the means to do solar at your house, because of covenants or what are requirements, you can still probably get away with doing a solar mini split. And after the heating and cooling of your home, the next largest load is the heating of water. And that system that I kind of briefly talked about for the basement that we'll be doing, we'll also be using to heat our water. But with that, and this be my first video, and I prayed to God that the editing software is better than I think it's going to be. I leave that with that, and get going doing something. Whatever you're doing, do better, do more, and be self-reliant. Thanks for spending your time with me. Goodbye.